Start with a robot joke. What's a robot's favorite music? Techno. Oh, that's a way better answer than my one. Heavy metal. Good. You're not scared of robots. Because sometimes when people say the word robot, it instills fear. It instills fear that maybe they're going to take over our jobs. They probably are. Why don't we learn to code them so you control the robots? That's what I love to do. I love to code. I love to build robots. I just love robots. Yet when I take them out to the public, people do one of two things. They either go, robots, awesome, or they go, robots, scary. And there's this divide between the good and the bad, the evil robot, the helper robot. The word robot actually comes from the Czech word robota, which translate to mean slave or helper or laborer. They were designed to help us as a lower species to make laborious tasks easier. I love robots. I have a lot of robots. I play with a lot of robots. And there are people in the world who have one of two reactions. So I decided to take a robot to Papa in Wellington over Easter, because it was, Easter break. And I thought, well, I'll take him outside and we'll go dancing. So there's an interactive robot called Mechanoid, made by Mechanoid. And this is me dancing outside to Papa with the robot. Nobody wanted to touch him. Nobody wanted to dance with him. Everybody was a little scared that I was holding a robot who was going around the museum with me. Our fear of robots is probably because of our lack of interaction with them. And there are some really cool robots out there, especially things like Mechanoid, built to be the same size as your child for your child, to teach them how to build robots. You have to build this thing from scratch and then code robots. He tells jokes, he dances, he's pretty goofy. I took him around the museum, we met some stuff, we went to see the giant squid. We met some of the native species. I programmed this as a sheep, and you can tell him what objects are. And then he'll talk to another person. And so I said, this is sheep. And he took a picture of sheep and understood sheep. And then I introduced him to somebody else in the museum. And he was like, hello, Bob. Do you know sheep? And he goes, and Bob is like, that's weird. So you can program. He was really fun. What I want to do is break down the fear of robots, what they are and what they aren't. So in part of that, one of my things is I teach a lot of children. I interact with a lot of schools. And I find that there's this real cutoff at the age of 11 where girls want to do science. Girls don't want to do science and boys want to do science. And as we get older, 11 through to 16, less and less girls study science. And boys don't seem to be fazed by it. And I've always been really concerned about this as a pipeline. And so I set up this charity called OMG Tech with Vaughan Rizal at Vend. And what we do is we pretty much teach kids how to code, build robots, 3D print, all the future technologies. We specialize in teaching children in Decile 1 and Decile 2 schools. We want to make sure that everybody has the opportunity, if they want to learn how to build and program robots, to do that. It's been highly successful, and I love doing it. Now, as part of my mentor for that, I always want to know what to wear. What do you wear when you're teaching kids to build robots? And I realized that there's not much choice. I can buy an oversized baggy dude shirt from the geek shop, which is great, but it doesn't reflect who I am as a person. So trying to be a teacher of robots, I found that as a female, it was actually quite difficult to reflect that instantly, so you knew that I was robot girl. And then I started looking at reasons why girls don't study science in high school. What are the reasons that we have this 11-year-old sort of fall off? And there are lots of surveys out there, and most of them think it's just not for them. I actually had a little 5-year-old come up to me, and she's like, I wish I could be an astrophysicist when I grow up. I'm like, you can. She's like, oh, I thought it was just for boys. And you realize the stereotype hits our 5-year-olds through media. You realize that their toys that they're surrounded with are holding toys, not building toys. You think of robots like Transformers. I don't see Transformers in the girls section. I don't see it down the pink aisle. Suddenly, our kids are marketed to in that they just don't think that these things are for them. Name me one female TV personality anywhere in the world that is an engineer or a scientist that has her own show. Just one. Right? You can't. And that's sad, because now what we don't have is female role models for our kids to grow up and be like, I want to be like that. I can see that I can grow up to be like that. What you have is fantastic white males who are doing this, but it's not a broad enough discipline that a little girl can grow up having an idol. Right now she's got Miley Cyrus and Kim Kardashian. This reflects through the pipeline. The IPEN study in 2013 showed that 13% of women are engineers out of the engineering population. 13%. Now, 23% of those study engineering. So we have an average in New Zealand of 23% women studying engineering, but only 13% go on to be engineers. It's a whole bunch who get their degrees and then go do something else. That's a waste of our taxpayers' money, and that's a waste of resources, and it's not a diverse pool of engineers. Now, this is the same number for the US, and it's actually down to 6% in the UK. Only 6% of engineers in the UK are women. This is what my life is like. This is pretty much the ratio of my job every day. I go into meetings as the only woman with a bunch of guys. It's great, but sometimes it's not very diverse, and sometimes it's a little bit of the same. And you feel like you're the only one throwing in a different perspective, and you just become that person who's like, oh, that's Michelle, she's got the weird ideas. Maybe I do, but sometimes I feel like I've got the weird ideas because I'm approaching it from a different perspective, because my experience as a female is different. So then I looked at why women leave engineering. Why are there only 13% when we train 23% of them? And one of the biggest reasons is this. I get this. I feel this. Isolation. I feel lonely sometimes. I wish there was a girl I could talk to at work that was similar to me, that was my age. I wish there was. There really isn't. And I think about often leaving engineering to go to an industry, maybe like science communication, so I can be in journalism just to be around women. I shouldn't have to change my field just to have a conversation with somebody who's like me, yet I feel lonely. I go to San Francisco a lot, and I go to Silicon Valley. And I was in Apple recently. And when I was in Apple, I realized that there were a lot of guys around me. And Apple has a pretty casual dress code. And what they do is they have geeky T-shirts, right? You know they're a geek because they've got like their Star Wars on or their robot on. And you just know that they're part of the tech community. And it's almost like this insular bubble, like, oh, you're one of us, you're one of us, you're one of us. What I realized is there was nothing out there for me that made me one of them. So I go into these meetings, and they're like, oh, you the secretary? Did you come to take minutes? What, you build robots? And I get that, look, it doesn't compute in my brain because you don't have a robot shirt on, so you're not in our crowd. I call it Sparepart Syndrome. As a woman in engineering, sometimes I just feel like a bit of a spare part. Like, I know I'm useful, but I'm not quite sure where I fit in this cog that already seems to be very similar. And then I realized Sheldon has a whole wardrobe of Robo shirts. A whole wardrobe. If you watch The Big Bang Theory, you know that the stereotype of an engineer like me is Sheldon Cooper. And he has a different shirt for every episode. I have robot shirt jealousy. And so I got thinking, where are all the robot shirts for women? And I may have complained slightly. So there was a New Zealand company called Hoist Apps, and they were like, we'll make you one. So they did. So I'm wearing it now. And I love it. It's the only robot shirt that I have. And it looks like this. Designed by Hoist Apps. Thank you, Hoist Apps. And they gave me two because they know that I wear it nonstop. This is what I wear to teach my kids, to be like, hey, I'm a girl who does robots. You get this, right? When you see me coming down the street, you're like, robot on her shirt. Must like robots. If I walk into Silicon Valley to a tech company, you're like, oh, maybe she's one of us. But it's still sort of a dude shirt. I mean, it's sort of, but I feel like I'm just sort of fitting into the male mold of having a shirt I may have curves under here. You can't really tell. Shirts are great, but they're not great for what I like to dress as business. So I was like, how do we solve this problem? So I decided, as a big, passionate person for supporting local business and local community, to have a look around at clothing made in New Zealand right now. And I love tech stuff, so I wanted to find the most innovative tech clothing company I could find. So I called Rob Fife at Icebreaker. It was one of those like, yeah, Rob. He was like, uh-oh, Nano Girl's calling. What does she want? And I was like, so here's this thing. And I explained my situation. And I was like, I love Icebreaker because you have the thing called the Barcode. If you don't know about the Barcode, it's where if you own Icebreaker clothing, there's a number in the back of the dress or shirt or whatever, and you can trace the farm, and you can trace the sheep, and you can technically work out where the merino wool came from to make your garment. And I love that techie side, right? I love the word barcode. I think it's awesome. So as part of supporting a local business and trying to do everything in New Zealand, I wanted to team up with Icebreaker. So Rob gave me permission to do some stuff with Icebreaker. Cool. I don't just support local business. I support clothes that you don't have to wash, that don't smell, and you don't have to iron. I live in a suitcase. I travel a lot for my job, and I hate taking anything but carry-on. Pretty much 2 weeks is I can survive on a little Samsonite carry-on. How do I do that? Because I wear clothes that you don't have to iron. I roll them up, I throw them into a suitcase, and literally I could be traveling for 2 weeks, going from domestic to long haul with things rolled up. I don't like ironing stuff. I'm too busy. I don't like washing things, really. Merino's great. You don't have to, and it doesn't smell, and you can get away with it for a while. I'm really busy. So I wanted a fabric that supported my lack of domestic duties, as well as supporting local New Zealand business. And then I was like, who am I going to get to help me on this? And I really wanted it to be a woman who understood the tech industry. And because I love this shirt so much, I called Hoist Apps and I said, who designed these for you? And they're like, oh, it was Helen. Called Helen. I'm like, hey, Helen, what a funky project to work on. And she's like, oh my God, is that Nano Girl? Sorry, the font is so small, but basically she says, yes. She doesn't just say yes, but she says she's really excited to work on this project because, first of all, I love her design of this robot that I wear all the time, but second of all, she works in the tech industry and she gets what it's like to be a girl in this field. And so she helped me come up with some ideas for creating some new type of feminine-friendly clothing. And by feminine-friendly, I mean not just sticking a dude robot on a girl's shirt. I mean actually thinking about the design from the perspective of a tech woman. So we started with dinosaurs. The reason why we started with dinosaurs is because the Brontosaurus just came back as an official sort of category as a species. And as a dinosaur nut, I was like, yes, because they'd been like put in another category and I was like, Brontos are back. I was really excited about dinosaur news, and I love dinosaurs, and I'm a girl who likes dinosaurs, and I want to reflect that. So I was like, so we did the first print, and I was like, it looks like a dude dinosaur. Like, I don't know how you sex a dinosaur, but it looks like a dude. So then we were like, well, let's give it a flower. Okay, so it's carrying a flower in its tail. Okay, we got that far. And I was like, you know what it needs? Eyelashes. So we started tweaking the designs of things to make them look like the feminine form of what we normally see, only the masculine. Has anybody seen a girl dinosaur recently on anything? Right, so we played around with some stuff. Now, I don't know anything about design. You'll know from my font, I have no creative talent. I also don't know anything about fabric. I'm a nanotechnologist and I build robots. So when I took on this project, I was like, this sounds like a great idea. And then I realized that merino is pretty much the hardest thing you can possibly ever print on. I was like, you don't need just screen print stuff? Like, isn't that you just throw it? No, apparently not. I learned a lot about fabric. I learned that merino is the hardest thing to print on because the fabric type, you have to pre-treat it. And I was like, oh, well, I've already told Icebreaker I was doing this, so we're stuck with this fabric. Let's just deal with it. So Peter Heslop at AUT is a genius. Thank you, Peter. He put up with me constantly turning up on his own and being like, can we do this? Not only did I want to print on merino, we ended up going with a digital print. I also wanted to print across seams because I don't want stuff just in the middle. I want stuff to wrap around. And he's like, what? I was like, this is what I want. Let's do this. If we're going to do something innovative and different, let's make it really different. So I'm going to ask Vivian to stand up here. This is Vivian. Now, I also want to show you what tech women look like. So Vivian she has a degree in physics. She also is an amazing coder for Amnesty International. This is an IT tech woman who, if you will take off your lab coat, is now wearing Brontosaurus dress. So I'll let you walk up and down, and you can see what you can see is that it goes across the seam. She has eyelashes. She looks like she was made for a girl to feel like they fit in with the sciencey dinosaur community. Dinosaur girl lovers unite. So, step one, make something that feels feminine, looks feminine, is functional, and has a dinosaur on it, a girl dinosaur. Step two, I'm going to introduce you to Janet. Janet is a mechatronics engineer. She builds robots. That's what mechatronics is. She builds them, she codes them, she's amazingly awesome. And she likes spaceships. So, design number two. You can do a little parade. We've tailored it with a jacket so you can see how with boots and a jacket, now you're a spaceship-loving, maybe aeronautical engineer who can go to work and be like, oh, the guys are like, you're one of us. So I guess, you know, the whole theme of this is robot, right? And I love this robot t-shirt. Wouldn't be better. I could show you that. Put my mic back on. That actually, I can be a lover of robots and show myself off as a female and just be proud of what I do. And now when I walk into a community that's tech-based, they'll be like, oh, she must like robots. And I don't have to compromise with my old man's baggy shirt with Star Wars on the front to be like, hey, accept me. Instantly, I feel feminine. I feel funky. It's pink shirt day to day, anti-bullying, pink dress to support that. So now, what didn't exist, and I looked everywhere for a robot dress. I looked everywhere in the world because I hoped somebody had already created this to solve this problem. Now we have. So I'd like to thank Icebreaker for supporting my crazy idea. I'd like to thank AUT for being able to print on ridiculous fabrics that cause them so many problems. I'd like to show you what tech girls look like and the fact that we just want to wear stuff that reflects who we are, what we do, without compromising on baggy things. We also don't like washing stuff. So what's next? This was step one. I feel that as a role model, it's in my personal interest to make sure I reflect who I am as a person, and that's partly on what I wear in my clothing. Step two, I want to make sure that little girls who want dinosaur pajamas or dinosaur dresses can go into a shop and buy that. Because if you have little girls, it's really hard for them to get a robot on a dress or a dinosaur, anything based in the science and the tech and the engineering field. So of course they feel like they don't fit in. There's nothing for them out there. So my next challenge, if anybody wants to join me, is I'd like to try and find a New Zealand manufacturer of children's dresses that we can print on. I want to keep it within New Zealand. I feel passionately about that. I think I'd like it to be cotton because I think children get messy. I don't know, I don't wash them very often. So. But if anybody is interested in making this the next project, I'd love to have this as a community project where we just make stuff for our girls so they too can feel like they fit in. And we too can change a stereotype. Thank you.